प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः. Om. Dear friends, we are now trying to study Bhagavad Gita. In the last 4 episodes, I gave an introduction, a very elaborate introduction to what Gita is and why it is called so and what is the overall context and all that. And we also completed the first adhyaya, that is the Arjuna Vishada Yoga. That is where Arjuna, he sits in anguish. He just collapses in that on the base of the chariot. So that is where we are. And after that, we have also entered the second chapter. The second chapter, I told you, it is called the Sankhya Yoga. It is called the Sankhya Yoga. Yoga, again, to remind you, yoga does not mean it is another form of yoga. I told you every chapter in Gita is captioned yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Gyana Yoga, etc., etc. It doesn't mean that there are so many types of yogas. Yoga means, here in this in the context of this Gita, yoga is a particular strategy which is explained in that particular chapter. That particular strategy which is meant to take us near the, say, ultimate goal, near the supreme reality, near realization. So that is what is yoga here. In this particular context, yoga is a strategy to unite with the ultimate. So that is what we can say, remember here. So we have reached the chapter called Sankhya Yoga. So in this chapter again, so the same trend continues. We have seen the first few lines of chapter. The first few lines of the chapter, again, tam tatha krupaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam, etc., etc., I think we read. So there Arjuna is full of tears, and then Krishna says this sort of behavior, it is almost like impotence. This sort of impotence is not suitable, it is not befitting you. That is what he says. He uses very, very strong words. Then again he says, Anarya Justam, Asvargiyam, Akirtikaram. So he says, Anarya Justam, at a social level, it is not something which is adopted by Aryas. Arya means a refined person. So Arya and Dravida, that sort of distinction is not there in our books. It is only created something by outsiders. So Arya means a refined person. Anarya Justam, Asvargiyam. So after that again, after death, you are not going to attain Swarga. Akirtikaram. Even after a long time, you will be having this ill fame. Your fame, the great name and fame which you have acquired for such a long time, all that fame will go. So that is what he said. Then Arjuna continued to say, how can I kill Bhishma? Katham Bhishma Maham Sankhye. How can I attack Drona? And then instead of fighting with these people, I will as well take up the duty or a dharma of a Brahmana. So in those days, I told you, the dharma of a Brahmana was not to have any wealth. He voluntarily gave up wealth, and then his job was only to preserve knowledge. His job was only to think, explore, and then give some direction to the society. And he was supposed to live by Bhikshatanam. Bhikshatanam means by begging alms. So that was the duty of a Brahmin in olden days. So, okay, at a later time, because of social changes and all that, Brahmins also have started acquiring some gifts, and somebody gave a large gift, and then this man became a rich man. So that is how it is. We can forget about it. But then, so Arjuna says, I will as well take up Bhikshatanam, and instead of fighting these people. Then, and finally, Arjuna also says, at some point, he also realizes that maybe he is wrong. So let me ask Krishna, let me surrender to Krishna. So that is why he says, Yach Shreyasyan Nishchitam Bruhi Tanme Shishyasteham Shadhimam Tvam Prapannam. I am surrendering to you. I am your Shishya. I am your disciple. You please tell me. Shadhi means you command me. What is the duty? What is my duty? You explain to me. Then it is now the duty of Krishna to give him a direction. So now we find that the roles are reversed. Now, till now, Arjuna is the master, technically, and Krishna is the charioteer, the person who is the driver. Now the driver becomes the master, and Arjuna becomes his student. So the roles are reversed. Arjuna is the Krishna, the charioteer, for Arjuna who symbolizes the human being. So there again, this chariot and charioteer is a symbol which we find in the Upanishads quite often. there is an Upanishad called Kathopanishad. In that Kathopanishad, there is a mantra which says that the self means the human body, the human being with the body mind complex and all that. He is the Ratham. He is somewhat like the Ratham. Ratham means a chariot. And then he is a self. Whatever is the self, that the notion of I. For example, what is my self? The notion called I. I am this, I am that, I am this. So all that I, the identity called I, that is the self. The self is the charioteer. Then who is the guide? Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi. Shariram Rathamevacha. He is the master of the chariot. And then owner is, the chariot itself is the body. And Buddhi, the intellect. Buddhim tu Sarathim Vidhi. Buddhi is the driver or charioteer, which is in the position of Krishna. And then the 5 indriyas, the 5 sense organs which are there, the 5 sense organs are like the horses. And the horses, they drag in wherever they find something attractive, they drag us towards that. So we have to restrain the horses. So manas is the pragraha. Pragraha means the reins. You have the horses tied to the chariot, and then you hold the reins. You hold the reins and then control the horses. So mind is somewhat like the reins. So that is how that symbolism we find in the Upanishads. So here again we have to apply that symbolism here to see the position of Arjuna, to see the position of Krishna. And now Krishna gives a message. And what is Krishna saying? He gives a message. Arjunam nimitti krutya. The people who have commented on this portion at this place, they have written that the message is for the mankind, the total human being, the entire mankind, and not merely to Arjuna. Arjuna was only a pretext there. So that is what they say. And what exactly is Krishna saying? I will just read a couple of lines there to see what exactly he says, and then I will come back and try to give you a background of why he says like that. Because he talks high philosophy to start with. Why is he talking that high philosophy? We have to, after all, Arjuna is in distress. He is in a moral confusion. He is in a distress. And then he goes to Krishna and then he asks him, I surrender before you, you give me guidance. And then suppose you are in a distress and then you go to a psychiatrist. What does he do? He will try to say, okay, you meditate on what is nowadays what they call mindfulness meditation. You just concentrate and then you meditate on the type of, what is the nature of your distress, why you have got the distress, what are the factors, all that sort of meditation they say. Krishna does something similar. In fact, mindfulness meditation, etc., these are concepts which are derived from our own yoga texts. So anyway, Krishna gives him a big picture, a large picture about what exactly is Arjuna, and then what is his overall role in the whole context, of preservation of dharma. So that is what is the picture here. So we have to see what Krishna says. Krishna says, Ashocyan anvashochastvam. You are just crying for those who do not deserve to be cried. They are not going to die. They are not going to die. They are there forever. Bhishma, Drona, etc., etc. All these things you think that they are going to die. They are not going to die. They are there forever. I will explain to you why. So then, Natvevaham jatunasam. Here again he says in this from 11th shloka, that is 11th shloka of this particular chapter to 30th shloka. In about 20 verses, he talks about the whole philosophy of the Upanishads, the philosophy which is there in the Upanishads. What Upanishads talk about? The individual self, what we call Jiva. We should know a couple of terms here. That is, the individual self is called Jiva. Jiva does not refer to the human being alone. It starts with the tiniest, say, prani. Prani means anything which is having a life, which is having a mind. That is starting from an ant. Ant is also having an intelligence because it knows where exactly some sweet is kept. So starting from an ant, or maybe smaller than that, starting with a some microbe, something like bacteria. Even bacteria have intelligence. So starting from that right up to the dinosaur, all these are jivas, because anything which is having some body and mind, they are called the jivas. And then jiva is this, and the supreme reality is what is called Brahma. Jiva and what is called Brahma. Supreme reality is not something It is not a person who is there, sitting there somewhere in heaven or anything like that. I will explain to you what it is. It is called Brahma. It is not that Brahma whom we usually see in the Puranas, a man with 4 heads, and then who is the husband of Saraswati, and all that. Not that Brahma. We are talking about a particular concept. We are not talking about a person who sits in a lotus with 4 heads and all that, 4 heads and maybe 4 hands, and then say husband of, and with a white beard as we see in films. It's not like that. We are not talking about that Brahma. Brahma, when we say, we are only referring to some absolute consciousness, which I am going to explain. So here with these 2 words, if we see, that's good enough now. Jiva and Brahma. Jiva relates to anything which is having a body and mind, and then Brahma is that supreme reality. So what is the relationship between that? What is the Jiva? That is what Krishna is going to say. So Krishna is saying, Natve, in the 12th shloka, Natvevaham jatu nasam. It reads like that. It says, no, it is not as though I never existed, it is not as though you never existed. The structure is like that. The meaning is that you were always there, I have always been there. There is nothing like death. There is nothing like death to this self. So that is what he says. The self which is there in a being, in any living being, that self has no death. The body has death. So this is primarily, if we understand this, we can go ahead. Self, that is which is associated with intelligence and consciousness, that has no death, whereas the body has death. And then he says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara. That is, Dehi means the embodied self. The self which is there is situated in a body, or embodied self is called Dehi. For this Dehi, just like say in a person there is a kaumaram, yavvanam, jara, there is a childhood, there is a youth, and then there is say maturity, and then old age, and then death and all that. Tatha dehantara praptihi. Dehantara prapti means this self goes into some other body. That is what is called transmigration. We have heard the word transmigration, that is going into another body. So what is it that goes into another body? The self means which is associated with mind. That also I will explain slowly what exactly is that self. First I will say what Krishna is saying, and then I will try to explain what Krishna is saying and why Krishna is saying. Then again he says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya. In this particular shloka, what he means is, all our sensory experiences, Matra sparshastu, all our sensory experiences, I see something, I am happy, I see something else, I feel sad, something else is cold, something else is hot. So various impressions, various experiences which I have, all these experiences, they are very fleeting in nature. That is what he says. Then, and you go beyond this, you just ignore these. These are all just coming and going, you just ignore them. Then he says, then again there is a 16th shloka or verse on which the commentators have written very elaborate commentary. In fact, Shankaracharya has written about 10-page commentary on this thing. Na asato vidyate bhavo, na abhavo vidyate satah. That is, this eternal Atma, this eternal self is something which is always there. And then this body-mind complex which is unreal, for this there is no real existence. For something which is unreal, there is no real existence. For something which is real, there is no abhava, there is no disappearance, there is no death. So again I will repeat. For something which is unreal, there is no real existence. For something which is real, there is no death. So this is the shloka here, the 16th shloka, on which elaborate commentary has been written. I will not read out all that, I will give a gist. Then again he says, Avinashitu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam. This self which is called Atma, this is something which is indestructible, avinashi. There is no vinasha, there is no destruction. It is not going to die. And then and this is something which is pervading the whole universe. Sarvamidam tatam means it pervades everything. This Atma or consciousness is something which is pervading everything. So that is how it goes on up to 30th shloka. I will not read all these things. I will just tell you why Krishna is saying all this, and what exactly is the meaning, how to understand them. Krishna, you see, what he says is not something like some old man's, say, philosophical, old man's philosophy, cynicism. Old people, you see, when they are tired with life and then when they have failed in life and all that, in old age they feel wise, and then they keep on teaching some sermons to people. So this is not some old man's sermon. This is also called Smashana Vairagyam. Smashana Vairagyam is nowadays when you go to a graveyard. For example, you go to some graveyard, there you find BhagavadGeetha is being recited, and unfortunately Ghantasala, a very well known singer in Telugu, he has sung this BhagavadGeetha in such a very sorrowful tone. I don't know why he sung this in such a sorrowful tone, and then very sorrowfully he explained that the people who listen to that, they think that it is something which has to be studied only at the time of death. So it is very unfortunate. It is not something to be studied at the time of death, something to be recited at the time of death. But anyway, so Krishna is not saying in such a sorrowful tone, or it is not old man's cynicism or helplessness. It is something which is a very rational examination of the self. How? For this we need a background. We need some background about what our texts say, or what the Vedas and Upanishads say about the supreme reality, and what do they say about the self and all that. Because unless we know the background, we do not know why Krishna is saying this. And one more question is, why should Krishna say this, such a hi-fi thing, when Arjuna is in distress? We have to remember that Arjuna and Krishna, they belong to the Dwapara Yuga. And Krishna is the God incarnation himself, and Arjuna is a well-educated Kshatriya. And in those days, the Kshatriyas, the kings, they studied the Vedas. It is not as though they were ignorant. Even today, till recently, all the kings, the kings means all the royal people of royal family, they studied the Vedas. At least they were supposed to read Vedas. Like Brahmins are supposed to read Vedas, the Kshatriyas are supposed to read Vedas. Some people really read, like some people even now read Vedas. So, but this Arjuna also, he underwent studies, he studied Veda. So, this is something like a conversation between two high-level professors, or at least a great, you have to say, very senior professor, and somebody who is doing some sort of PhD under him. So, something like that. So, their discussion will be pretty high. It will not be understood by somebody who is in 5th class. If it has to be understood by somebody who is in 5th class, that is people like you and me, who are cut off from that time by 5,000 years, and that tradition also we do not know. We have never studied Vedas, we have never heard the name of Upanishads, so we don't know what it is. So, for somebody who knows already, who has some study, for him it is a sort of recapitulation. For Arjuna, it is a type of recapitulation. Hey Arjuna, you have studied this, you have forgotten. So, that in that context we have to see. We can't say that Krishna is something who is he is speaking something out of context. So, we should not think like that. So, here what he says, what do our Upanishads talk about, say for example creation. Before talking about creation, what do they talk about? The supreme reality. The supreme reality, suppose we say, we call any religion, at the level of religion, what do they say? At the level of religion, they say there is a God. God means it is a male, a human being, a person, not a human being, he is a male with extraordinary powers, with extraordinary strength, and he creates the universe. But then our Upanishads, they don't say like that. Upanishads say that supreme reality is of the nature of Satyam, Jnanam and Anantam. So, I will very briefly explain these words, what is meaning of Satyam, what is Jnanam and what is Anantam. Satyam means existence which is always there. Suppose I say, I take something, I take a pen. So, it did not exist a few years ago, and it will not exist maybe after a few years. So, I take something, I take a book or something, it did not exist a few years ago, it will not exist after some time. Take my own case, I did not exist some 65 years ago, and I will not exist after maybe a few years. So, anything, it is there existing for a small period of time and it is disappearing. It is just existing, disappearing. Something else is there, it exists, disappears, it exists and disappears. But then all these things, they are changing. Something, an object which is there, and then it is existing and disappearing. All these things are existing and disappearing against the background of something which is always existing, and that is what is called existence. And that existence which is beyond past, present and future. For example, I am now living in the present. I was not there in the past, I will not there be in the future. Whereas this existence or Satyam, Satyam does not mean truth. Satyam, truth in the ordinary, in Telugu or some, in ordinary parlance, we translate it as truth. Of course, that meaning also may be there, Satyam, Vada, etc. But here in this particular context, Satyam does not mean truth, it means existence which is beyond, say, the past, present and future. So that means something which cannot be negated at any point of time. In fact, time itself is something which is a manifestation in this existence. Time itself is something which is manifestation. So this is a very serious stuff. All this is very, very serious to listen. Suppose I tell something, some Puranam. Suppose I say some Puranam and say that, oh, God is there, God is having elaborate, say, any number of hands, He is having such mighty hands, and then such mighty blows He gave to the demon and all that. That will be very, very interesting. But here, Vedanta is not like that. So Krishna is saying very, very serious things here. So this existence means that, Satyam. Then, what is this Satyam? Is it a whole, a large mass? Is it a huge mass or what? So it cannot be a huge mass. There is what is called intelligence. And intelligence is something you and I cannot deny, because you and I, we know, we are very, very clear that I exist, that notion of I is there, and I am seeing everything, I am noticing everything. So there is what is called intelligence. So in order to say that this Brahma, which is of the nature of this existence, is also intelligence. It is intelligence. So that is why it is said consciousness, Satyam, Jnanam, they said. And when we say Jnanam also, Jnanam, okay, Jnanam means what? I have the intelligence to know this. So that means I am there sitting here, and this object is also there in front of me. Jnanam can be something relating to an object. There is a perceiver and the perceived. There is a knower and the known. So that means this knower again is a limited person. That known thing, that object is there in front of you. So that means there is a limited, these two things are two limited things. So in order to avoid that, because God cannot be a limited entity, God cannot be called something which is a limited entity. So they said Anantam. Anantam is infinite, boundless. So it is something which is Ananta, where there is no question of knower-known relationship. There is no knower-known relationship in this. So this is something which is existence, consciousness and infinity. Or you can say infinitely existing consciousness is what is called Brahma. So this is how the supreme reality is defined. And Brahma is not a person. Brahma is only a notation. This Brahma is different from the four-headed Brahma which we worship, and then of course Brahma we don't worship, we worship only Vishnu and Shiva. Okay, so this Brahma, this Upanishadic Brahma is that supreme reality. It is neither male nor female. It is referred to as it. You don't say Brahma, you don't say he, you refer it to it as he, it. So we will continue in the next episode. Om.